If you're lucky, danger comes with a warning. In wartime Europe, sirens swept across major cities, towns, and villages, whose residents took shelter and prayed to live through the incoming bombs. The explosions left a wake of rubble, scorched earth, fractured lineages. In Janine May Levine's hidden office in Paris, the warning of danger came in the form of a single electric bell. But it wasn't to signal a spotted bomber plane. Janine was tasked with writing secret messages to the American embassy in Switzerland. The war and the world were at stake, protected by the ringing of a bell.
And my boss was a very nice person, knew my story, knew what the trouble was. And he said, we're going to put you at the end of the hall, there is a closet there. We're going to put your desk there. And we're going to rig a system that if anybody comes that's asking for you that we don't like or whatever, I'll have a bell under my desk.
For years, the bell sat just inside the closet, silent. Janine showed up to work, opened a door in the back of the office, and made sure to close it behind her. Inside, she pulled out her invisible ink and settled into her workspace. Her instructions were simple. If the bell rings, stop what you're doing, lock the door, and quiet your breath. They're here. Day after day, Janine got to work. The bell never rang. It just hung there, looming over her. And then, one day, I'm Doug Frazier, and this is Stars Among Us.
My father didn't believe in raising us with one religion. He said if we need one in our life, we could choose which one we wanted.
Janine's family rarely went to synagogue except for weddings and deaths. Religion just wasn't a focus in their community. In 1942, 17-year-old Janine saw herself more as French than Jewish. After all, she was the 9th generation of her family in France.
The first thing that happened that we had to register. Jewish people had to register the police. They had to go give their address. Father said, don't worry about it. We're French. Nothing is going to happen to us. So let's do it. Let's do the right thing. Well, we had to get a star and we had to sew it on the clothes on the left side over the heart. And we were not allowed in restaurants and movies or metro. We had the last car.
After wearing it for just one day, Janine threw the star in the toilet. Her family didn't force her to put it back on, but her father did express his concerns.
They said that I was wrong because I should do the right thing, but I wasn't going to do the right thing.
Janine found herself at age 20, living on her wits and false papers. A bike, a small suitcase. These were all she had to call her own. Her husband David and her father-in-law had been picked up by the Gestapo and shipped to Germany to work. So she was told. A stroke of luck landed her a job with a company that sold farm equipment and large machinery. But from the war, a new venture arose for Janine's boss, passing important messages to the American embassy in Switzerland.
So he was going to Switzerland every month. And in the back of all the commercial letters or papers that he had, I was writing in invisible ink information for American embassy on German troops and move of arms and all kinds of situations. Eventually, some of the letters got into their hand.
We often think of invisible ink as a childhood novelty, and it's easy enough to come by, even in early 1940s France. But when a fun toy of youth is used to deliver secret messages, and those invisible words are discovered by the enemy, they'll want to sift out the source. That day, 3 SS officers came looking for the writer.
They started opening all the doors and looking into all the office. We were smarter than they were, because the books that they were keeping, I was bookkeeper, secretary there, were copied by another girl. And the book that I was making were in my office, but in the front office, they were not my handwriting. Somebody else was copying them. Nobody knew but us that I was keeping the books, and my handwriting was. So when they look at the book and they had a sample of my handwriting, it didn't match. And at the end of the hall, they tried to open my door. I had locked it because my boss had given me the bell. They said, "What's in there?" He couldn't open the door. I was thinking, I said, if he finds me, that's it. I'm finished.
As the only Jew in the office, if her door opened, she too would be taken by the Gestapo.
My boss said, it's just a closet where we have supplies and things like that.
The officers eyed the door, considering their options, then shook their heads.
And they went away. He said, my life, that night I stayed in the office, I didn't go out. They had the soldier downstairs to see if I was going to come in for 2 days, waiting. And then when I didn't show up, they left. After 2 days, my boss said, you cannot stay in Paris anymore, it's too dangerous. That's where I left. Well, I had to find a way to pass the demarcation line without papers. I couldn't get papers.
Past the demarcation line in the south of France lied freedom for Jews. Janine found a place to hide out and invited her mother-in-law to join her in the escape. She wanted to think about it, so Janine gave her the night to think and planned to come by the next morning to get her stuff and take her mother-in-law with her.
And the concierge, the keeper of the building, was waiting for me at the corner of the street, and she stopped me. She said, don't go over there, they pick up your mother-in-law this morning. She was sent to Auschwitz, and she got the gas chamber.
Janine had to get out of Paris. Her path, like so many others, was through a paid guide. For a small fee, a covert stranger would sneak her to the south of France.
I went on a truck at night, on the back of a truck, hidden.
She rode for 4 hours in the back of a truck, thinking of where her husband David might be, what nightmares he must be enduring, hoping he was okay, and also hoping that she'd survive to see the morning.
On a little road in the middle of the night, we stopped. There was woods on each side of the road. They told me to get down, to go inside the woods, not to make any noise, not to show myself, not to be very quiet, that somebody would come whistling a certain tune. Then I could call him and say that I was there. So I waited about 2 hours in the woods. Very frightening.
The new guide laid out the plan. They'd walk 20 minutes through the woods until they reached a road. A few miles up that road were German stations with dogs.
So we have to be very quiet. We are going to have to crawl down that field. At the end of the field, there is like a ditch. We're going to lay there to make sure that the troops are not coming one way or the other. And then when I tell you jump, you're going to have to get up and jump across the road. On the other side, you're in the free zone. They cannot touch you. But you have to make it there. So he said, I'll go with you. So we crawl on the belly until to that ditch, and then we jump. We made it. The man who took me over got killed coming back. But they were doing that for money. I mean, they were risking their life all the time. It wasn't just for me, but for other people. And they were making good money doing it.
How do you find your loved one among the millions of displaced? Where do you even start? Janine reviewed the list of names of those liberated from concentration camps as they came in, but David's name was nowhere to be found.
So there was an organization that made some research on people like that who had disappeared. They said the only thing to do is get a picture of your husband and go. We'll give you 5 names of people who had come back from that camp, from Buchenwald, assuming that he had been there. Maybe one of them will recognize him or remember him. But it was awful because those people were more dead than alive.
The first visit quickly ended with a no. The second played out the same way. They hadn't seen him, and if they had, they couldn't recall. She made the third visit, this one with a Polish doctor. Janine showed him the photograph. With a heavy breath, he nodded.
I said, yes, I knew your husband very well. We worked at the infirmary for 2 years together. And he said one day they took some 50 people from the camp and the Germans, and we heard the guns going off, and the soldiers came back alone. And we knew by experience that they were killing hostage. And your husband was one of them.
Trauma creates a narrow field of view. All that's visible is the wound. All that matters is healing. And sometimes, a veil of secrecy feels like the only way forward.
In fact, my brother and sister all changed their children's religion over there for that reason, in case there's another Hitler.
Janine's later life was filled with family and love, but the Holocaust lived within her. Whenever she heard a noise at night, she tensed in fear. The Gestapo is still there, she said. You never leave it behind you. Stars Among Us is brought to you by the Holocaust Commission of the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater and other fine sponsors, and has been funded in part by a grant from Virginia Humanities. If you're interested in finding out more about the Holocaust and Janine May Levine's story, please visit holocaustcommission.org/starsamongus. Our producer is Elka Mennick. Our executive producers are Wendy Jurin-Auerbach and Gail Litwin-Flax. Stars Among Us is distributed by WHRO Public Media.